welcome to Tossing the Pigskin. I'm your host, Nate Smith. This is our first episode of 2020, and as you can tell just by that intro, we've made some serious upgrades this offseason. If you watched our show last year, you'll know that absolutely no effort was put into the set. There is some now, so that's good. If you're new to the channel, welcome, and if you're returning from last year, I appreciate the support. Today is Thursday, September 10th, and the NFL season will be kicking off in just a couple of hours. We got 3 segments on deck for you today, so let's get into it. First up on the docket is 3 gambling picks against the spread. Let's start with game number 1, the Cleveland Browns at the Baltimore Ravens. Give me the Browns here at plus 8.5. I just think this line is simply too high for the first game of the 2020 season. Now, I partially understand why it's so high. The Ravens are a much better team, and looking at what they did in 2019, I understand where the odds makers are coming from. Lamar Jackson set the single-season rushing record for a quarterback last year and won the NFL MVP. 2 tremendous accomplishments. And the Ravens as a team won 14 games and looked like they were about to cruise to a Super Bowl before Tennessee shattered their dreams in the AFC playoffs. Now, will that affect their psyche going into 2020? I'm not really sure, but that's not my reasoning behind this pick anyways. My main reasoning behind this pick is what the Browns have done. The Browns realized their offensive line was an issue, and they addressed it. You look at the offensive tackle spot in particular. Brought in veteran offensive tackle Jack Conklin from Tennessee over the offseason. They signed him. And they spent a first-round draft pick on Jedrick Wills out of Alabama. So that's an immediate upgrade at both tackle positions, which will help against a talented Baltimore pass rush. Also, I have a little bit more faith in Baker Mayfield heading into 2020. I still don't ever think he'll be this dominant franchise quarterback that some touted him to be early on in his career, but he had a poor year in 2019. I think he plays better in 2020. He's likely got a chip on his shoulder here. Also, the Browns also signed Austin Hooper at tight end to go along with the already talented Odell Beckham and Jarvis Landry on the outside. So the Browns will be able to score it. And the Browns' defense is pretty good. They're not going to completely shut down Lamar Jackson. I mean, nobody can. My main reasoning behind this pick is that I believe the Browns will keep this game close. If you look at last year, these teams play each other twice every year as they are both members of the AFC North. Last year, the Browns went to Baltimore early on in the season and put up 40 points. Now, I'm not saying there's a repeat of that on deck here, but I just think they keep the game close, well within the 8.5 points. Going to game number 2. Give me the Cowboys -2 at the Rams on Sunday Night Football. Oh, and it's important to mention, I don't think I said this earlier, but I took all of these picks earlier in the week, closer to Monday, so the lines have since shifted a bit, but they will all be relatively close to what they close at. So, Cowboys -2 at the Rams on Sunday Night Football. This is just a brand new, fresh start for Dallas. After a decade under Big Red, Jason Garrett, they have moved on to Mike McCarthy, who spent 13 years in Green Bay and was very successful, won a Super Bowl. McCarthy took last season off. He was waiting for the right job. And here it is. He has so many talented players at his disposal, particularly on the offensive end. One of the most underrated things McCarthy did, in my opinion, is retain offensive coordinator Kellen Moore from last year. If you look at what the Cowboys did early on in the 2019 season, those first 3 games, their offense was dynamite. Now, critics will say that's because they played a cake schedule early on in the season, which is true. And there is some truth to that's why they scored so many points early on. But in my opinion, more of that was Kellen Moore had more freedom early on in the season. And I think as the season progressed, Jason Garrett's conservative offensive approach sort of took over as he was higher in the power ranks. Garrett was the head coach. McCarthy has made it clear this offseason that he wants to let Kellen cook. And for that, I believe Dak Prescott is a legitimate 2020 MVP candidate. You already have a very talented receiving core in Amari Cooper and Michael Gallup. And then the 2020 draft, you had CeeDee Lamb in the first round. Also, I expect Blake Jarwin to take a nice step forward at the tight end position. Looking at this game, the Rams defense, in my opinion, just isn't very good. You have Jalen Ramsey and Aaron Donald, 2 superstars. No debating that. But the other 9 guys on this LA defense, they don't inspire you. Their linebackers aren't very good. Opposing corner from Ramsey, Hill isn't very good. I just think the Cowboys are going to be able to score early and often, and for that, I think they win by at least a touchdown. Takes us to game number 3 on Monday night. The Tennessee Titans will be visiting the Denver Broncos. First and foremost, there is a big QB disparity in this game. Ryan Tannehill is significantly better than Drew Lock. Will that be the case for the remainder of Drew Lock's career? I don't know. It's simply too early. Lock was a rookie last year and started just 5 games. In those 5 starts, he topped 210 yards passing just once. Now, it's a small sample size, but that's problematic to me. Also, another alarming stat is that he kept the ball close to the line of scrimmage. He really didn't push it downfield at all. Just 4.7 air yards per completion, meaning he was throwing screens, short routes, not even really intermediate, short slants, quick outs. So I just think this Titans defense will key in on that and realize that. Another thing that will help Tennessee here is the recent signing of Jadeveon Clowney. He will join Harold Landry and Jeffrey Simmons as a pretty ferocious pass rush they got brewing over there in Tennessee. The Denver O-line was problematic last year, and I really don't think it got much better this offseason. I think the Titans will be able to get consistent pressure on Drew Lock. I do understand that Denver has one of the best home field advantages in the league, but just as an overall team, both offensively and defensively, the Titans are the more complete team. And for that, I was able to get the Titans at even money line earlier this week. I know now it's at like -2.5. I still like the Titans in this game by a field goal. We'll kick off fantasy time with the first installment, and that is, who should you start? This week, I like Calvin Ridley, number 2 wide receiver for the Atlanta Falcons. They have a home game against the Seattle Seahawks, and a season ago, the Seattle defense was not very good, and over the offseason, they really haven't improved. In fact, last year, they were 27th in passing yards allowed, and the Falcons' offense actually got better. They brought in Hayden Hurst, another additional weapon for this offense, which will in turn free up more space for the likes of Julio Jones or our main guy for this segment, Calvin Ridley. Start Ridley, he's going to ball. Now for my sleeper, and that's Philadelphia Eagles quarterback Carson Wentz. They're taking on the Washington football team, and this offensive line has its hands full. Not only does Washington already have one of the best defensive lines in the entire league, but in case you haven't heard, let's quickly summarize what has happened to this Philly offensive line over the 2020 offseason. Starting right guard, Brandon Brooks, likely gone for the year. Starting left tackle, Andre Dillard, also likely gone for the year. Starting right tackle, Lane Johnson, is questionable for this game, and if he plays, he will not be at 100%. Good luck, Carson. Washington just drafted Chase Young. They already have Ryan Kerrigan, Montez Sweat, Jonathan Allen, and Daron Payne. Once again, good luck, Carson. Don't see this one ending well at all. My sleeper and final installment for fantasy time, give me Chris Herndon, the tight end for the New York Jets. Missed the entire 2019 season with a combination of suspensions and injuries. He's back. He's healthy. I saw a report he's having some chest tightness, but it doesn't seem like it's super serious. He will likely play and start on Sunday. I think he won't be limited at all. Given that he's healthy and 100%, let's go with Chris Herndon as our sleeper. According to Jets beat reporters, Sam Darnold's favorite target of summer camp has been Herndon. And it makes sense if you think about it. At wide receiver, the Jets don't have a lot of talent. Their top guy is Jamison Crowder, followed by Brashad Perriman and rookie Denzel Mims. Not a real inspiring group. Chris Herndon gets the job done for you as a sleeper against the Bills this week. For the last segment of today's show, I figured why not fill it with some early season predictions. Now, this Thursday night game will have already happened, but most of the teams still haven't played. So I want to go through and predict who I think is going to win each division. Starting with the AFC West, got to go with the Chiefs. Reigning Super Bowl champs. I mean, come on. Have you seen Patrick Mahomes play football? AFC North, give me the Steelers. I know this will be a surprise to some, as most people have the Ravens. I think the Steelers' defense is the best in football this season. In the AFC South, I like the Titans. The addition of Jadeveon Clowney to an already very solid roster overall. I like the draft pick at corner of Christian Fulton out of LSU. In a weak division, give me the Titans. AFC East, it's still the Patriots. Yes, they brought in Cam Newton. Yes, the offense will look different. And I understand two of the defense's best players, Dante Hightower and Patrick Chung, have opted out. Don't care. You really believe in the Bills or the Dolphins? It's the Patriots. In the NFC West, I like the 49ers. I do. They have been crippled by injuries at the wide receiver position, specifically to Jalen Hurd, Brandon Ayuk, and Deebo Samuel. The hope is that Ayuk and Samuel will be able to come back at some point this season, maybe around the halfway point. Hurd, I think, is more of a long-term injury. Despite that, the Niners are one of the best running teams in the league, and they'll have one of the best defenses in the league once again. In the NFC North, give me the Minnesota Vikings. Kirk Cousins is slept on, number one. Number two, I think the Packers are in for a season of regression. There's no way they win 13 games again this year. I do really like the Packers defense, but Rodgers just isn't the same guy, and they didn't upgrade his receivers at all. And the O-line got worse. I think Vikings surprise some people and win the NFC North. In the NFC South, give me the New Orleans Saints. All this talk about Tampa Bay, right? Tom Brady coming in. He's 43 years old. What is this guy going to do? I'm sorry, I just don't see it. Yes, Chris Godwin and Mike Evans are studs. O.J. Howard's good. Again, Gronk. What is Gronk going to do? I honestly think the Bucs are very overhyped. I think Brady and Gronk are in for a much longer season than people anticipate. And last but not least, in the NFC East, I like the Dallas Cowboys. If for nothing else, there's just not a whole lot of talent in that division. We know the Giants and Washington aren't going to compete, and given what the Eagles' offensive line currently looks like, I don't really see how they're going to be putting up enough points to win a lot of games. So I like the Cowboys to win the NFC East. That does it for episode 1. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe, and we'll see you next week.